you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Hasbro. Hasbro is in a crisis, losing $3 billion, having massive layoffs, and now a federal racism complaint for obviously illegal hiring practices. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Hasbro really should be a very successful company, but obviously they're mismanaged, and obviously they're too focused on the ridiculous woke agenda, and we'll get into that in detail. Right now, their stock is down 19.74% for the past 6 months, but in the last 5 years, it's down 36.85%. Why is their stock down so much? Well, their toys aren't selling very well, but in addition to that, they've lost billions making an investment in an entertainment company. I liked the idea of them buying Entertainment One when it first came out. I thought, hey, that is a great thing to be able to have so many intellectual properties like Hasbro has. They have G.I. Joe, they have Transformers, Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, more stuff. They have Mr. Potato Head. I don't know that we were going to see some massive Mr. Potato Head cartoon, but they do own and control a lot of intellectual property, and being able to make their own decision about producing content, hey, that's fantastic. And also, Entertainment One was a good company with some decent potential when they got their hands on it. They paid $4 billion for the thing, which was over the market value, but not crazy over the market value. It was like a 30% plus premium over the current stock price. But this kind of an acquisition is difficult to do. First of all, it's not in their regular line of business. So integrating that company into what they were doing at their toy companies, it's not quite simple. So you've got to really focus on things like that. You've got to really get on the same page with people. And also, you can't be pushing any kind of crazy woke agenda. Look at this. Hasbro completes sale of Entertainment One film and television business to Lionsgate for $375 million when they paid $4 billion for it. They paid $4 billion in cash. That's why if you go back 5 years and you say, well, gee, what's happened to them? They've lost at least $4 billion worth of value from a transaction like this. On top of that, toy sales are doing so badly because remember, yes, they have their own intellectual properties, but they also sell Disney toys. They sell Marvel toys. They sell Star Wars toys. They're not selling anymore because Disney is not focused on producing intellectual properties that drive toy sales anymore. And they haven't really been for years. From Reuters, Hasbro to lay off 900 more employees amid weak toy sales. They had already laid off around 1,000 employees in 2023. They're up to laying off 1,900 people for 2023. It's only really a 6,000 person company. If you're going to go and you're going to lay off a third of the people that work for your company, it's astronomical. It's like the company is going through a massive bankruptcy type of restructuring. Hasbro is not bankrupt, don't get me wrong. But if you go into a company and you cut a third of those employees, what exactly were those people doing just a few months before you cut them? And how was that supposed to be productive? Because if you can actually do without them, this was just an incredible waste of resources to have them on the payroll. In the meantime, they're so aggressive about hiring people of certain races and certain skin colors and other kinds of genders that they're one of the worst offenders of diversity, equity, and inclusion hiring over merit-based hiring. From America First Legal files federal civil rights complaints against America's largest toy companies for illegal racial discrimination and promoting a radical LGBT agenda. This also includes Mattel. Mattel is also the proud owner of a complaint from America First Legal, and we will get into Mattel as well. These complaints have been very effective at getting companies to change their policies. They're not lawsuits, they're federal complaints filed with the EEOC. From Bloomberg Law, corporate diversity complaints place EEOC in thorny spot. The EEOC is the federal U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and it's their responsibility to look into complaints when employees are being discriminated against. Yes, even if you have a diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, you are subject to federal laws. So this puts the federal government in a thorny spot because, of course, the federal government wants to push the diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, but it's generally illegal to discriminate based on people the way these companies are doing this, and they need to respond. Also in the LA Times, how a Trump advisor is making corporate America rethink diversity hiring. They're talking about Stephen Miller from America First Legal, who's really behind all of these complaints to the federal EEOC, and several lawsuits against companies as well doing the same kind of nonsense. But it is having an effect. From America First Legal Center for Legal Equality filed a federal rights complaint with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission against Hasbro Inc. and Mattel Inc. for apparent racial discrimination. AFL also sent letters to the board of directors at both companies reminding them of their fiduciary responsibilities and liability for the waste of corporate assets and destruction of shareholder value in the name of virtue signaling. What is a board of directors' fiduciary responsibility? The most important fiduciary duty is the duty of loyalty. The concept is simple. The decision makers within the company should act in the interest of the company and not in their own interests. The easiest way to comply with this duty is not to engage in transactions that involve a conflict of interest. They need to look out for the shareholders. The board of directors is there to keep an eye on management and to approve what management is doing on behalf of the shareholders, not to push any kind of social or progressive agendas. Hasbro acknowledges using facially illegal racial, ethnic, and sex-based classifications to balance the demographic profile of its workforce. In its most recent 10-K filing, Hasbro recited its 2025 diversity, equity, and inclusion goals, which include increasing female representation in leadership to director plus roles globally to 50% and increasing ethnically and racially diverse employee representation in the U.S. to 25%. Hasbro's 2021 to 2022 Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report admits years of civil rights violations. This report explicitly states that Hasbro began using unlawful race, national origin, and sex-based quotas or goals in 2017, and that the company has actively been working to fulfill those unlawful hiring goals over the past 5 years. For example, in 2019, racially and ethnic diversity new hires represented approximately 25% of all new hires. In 2020, approximately 30%. And in 2021, approximately 35%. So it's clear they're illegally discriminating against people based on their immutable characteristics. That is illegal. Finally, the evidence is that Hasbro also discriminates based on race and sex with respect to training program admissions. The summer 2022 internship program was both 50% gender and racially diverse. Here's what Hasbro actually says themselves. We pride ourselves on our inclusive culture where current and prospective employees see Hasbro as a great place to work. For the past several years, Hasbro has been recognized as one of America's top corporations for LGBT plus workplace equality by earning a high score on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index survey. The HRC is America's largest civil rights organization working to achieve LGBT equality. The HRC Corporate Equality Index is the national benchmark for LGBT-related policies and practices in America's top corporations. Hasbro is a 5-time perfect score recipient of 100 points on the HRC index, so they're driving their business with hundreds of other companies based on this Corporate Equality Index, which tells them to discriminate against people. The 2023 Corporate Equality Index criteria include workforce protections for LGBT plus people, inclusive benefits, supporting an inclusive culture, which dictate to them how their employees are supposed to interact with their supervisors. For example, supervisors undergo training that includes gender identity and sexual orientation as discrete topics and provides definitions or scenarios illustrating the policy for each. Integration of gender identity and sexual orientation in professional development. Skills-based or other leadership training that includes elements of diversity and/or cultural competency. These kinds of things have no business in the workplace, forcing public companies to focus on things other than their business. This is what happens when you focus on things other than your business. You make a move to acquire another company, try to figure out how to integrate it, run into trouble, and then lose billions of dollars. Over at Mattel also admits to using unlawful DEI criteria and practices with respect to employment, promotion, and training on the company's website and in its filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. For example, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Goals section on the company's website explicitly states that management is working to increase representation of women and representation of ethnicity at all levels. In its 2022 citizenship report, The company states that it continued to make progress on its DEI initiatives during 2022 and goes on to present year-over-year statistics from 2020, 2021, and 2022, tracking its progress in the hiring and advancement of employees based on their sex or ethnicity. Mattel also appears to be promoting a radical transgender agenda that teaches young children that they can identify as the opposite gender. Under the American Girl segment of the company, Mattel sells a book entitled Body Image that promotes the false narrative that biological sex is fluid and not determined at birth. Shockingly, management instructs a child who, quote, knows for sure that he or she is, quote, trans or non-binary, but has not yet entered puberty to see a doctor who, quote, might offer medicine to delay your body's changes, giving the child more time to think about his or her gender. America First Legal is holding corporate America to account for its immoral embrace of the illegal and destructive DEI agenda that judges people based on race and sex rather than merit and skill. Corporate managers who violate our civil rights laws, interfere with parental rights, and destroy shareholder value to promote the woke agenda should be prepared to face the consequences. And here's a statement from Ian Pryor, America First Legal Senior Advisor. Quote, parents across America are spending their hard-earned money buying presents for their children for Christmas and Hanukkah. But those same companies are taking that money and implementing unlawful, discriminatory employment practices based on race, sex, and ethnicity. The foundational principle of America is equality under the law. But that principle is being eroded by influential corporations whose actions are setting our nation back decades, all in the pursuit of woke and morally bankrupt ideologies being pushed by a cynical and entitled, quote, intellectual class that are committed to eroding our commitment to ensure that all are treated equally. Hasbro is a mess, and these policies are obviously not legal. It's great to see complaints getting filed against them. Hopefully they respond and do the right thing. If not, America First Legal is very good at getting publicity when it sends out these complaints. So far, Hasbro looks like it'll be down to around 4,000 employees. Who knows how many people they'll have to lay off in 2024. I don't blame them for trying to do something different, acquiring a $4 billion company and then trying to figure out how to integrate it into their company. It could have been a great deal, but they would have need to stay focused. And it shows that any of these companies that are really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion are going to be losing business opportunities. Anheuser-Busch got slammed and lost the value of a multi-billion-dollar brand with Bud Light. Their volume for Bud Light is still down by 30% nationally. The volume for their Budweiser brand is also down 25%. Their stock has come back a little bit, but it should have been much higher by now. All of these companies taking on this ridiculous distraction of trying to push progressive ideas and social agendas instead of some sort of a side project or charity project as their main focus? How many of the people at Hasbro that they hired, that they keep bragging about, fit this race or fit that gender, are part of the layoffs? What are they doing? Just laying off everyone right after they hire them? How is that any kind of accomplishment? It also messes up people's careers. If you're not hired based on merit, you will not have a career. There is no way that trend can last indefinitely. Who are you competing with? People that are good? People that you're better than? Legitimately and competitively? Or just other people of your race or skin color? There may not be people who can do a job better than you can if you're really good at it, and if you develop a reputation for being really good at it. But if you're only going to get hired based on your skin color or your gender or your sexual identity, you're no better than just about everyone else on the planet who looks or acts the way you do. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.